Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with an awesome new knife consult for you on a knife from a new maker that I have yet to feature on this channel. This is the Brian Brown Knives Warthog prototype. Very impressive initial impressions, very striking visual presence on this knife. This is the first knife that I've featured from knife maker Brian Brown. Brian Brown Knives is an American custom knife maker. He's relatively new to the game. I think he's been making knives for about 2 years. I met him at the Blade Show 2019 where I got to hang out with him and talk about this knife alongside its owner, Russell. Russell goes by @That'sNotAKnife on Instagram and is a very good friend of mine. He also sent along very generously his 2 Black Snow Custom opiates. So Russell has very fine taste in knives and a very, very nice collection. So thank you, Russell, for sharing this with everyone so we can learn a little bit more about these fantastic makers. Brian is a young guy, very humble in his beginnings of his knife creations. He's got maybe 3 or 4 models that he makes pretty regularly, and some of them are really cool. I got addicted to one that was a sort of Wharncliffe cleaver with a big fuller as the opening method. It was very neat. He does make these overbuilt style knives, but he also makes some smaller models as well. I recommend that you check him out as @BrianBrownKnives on Instagram, and if he has a website, I will leave a link down below. But this is a new model called the Warthog, and this is a prototype, and it was sort of something that Russell and Brian wanted to come up with. That was going to be a middle finger flick opener that was going to be a sort of heavy duty, sort of full size EDC style knife. And this is what they came up with, and it is absolutely wicked. So let's go ahead and get some vital signs on the Warthog here. This one features up front a 3.5-inch blade. Back to the pivot, you're right at 4 inches. Overall, you're looking at about 8.3 inches of overall length. The handle's coming in just under 5 inches, about 4.9 inches. You have an effective grip area right at 4 inches, but if you choke up into this choil, it's 5 inches, so it's pretty good. It's got a nice amount of ergonomic variability there, so you can change it up if you want to. Let me go ahead and bring out the calipers, make sure that they are zeroed here. The blade stock on this guy is coming in at 118 thousandths, or excuse me, 180 thousandths. 180 right there, so rather thick on the blade stock. And then the thickness is coming in at 0.52, so not overly thick on the handle thickness. It's nice to see that. You got a thick blade, but you've got a nice slim handle. So you've got quite a capable knife right here. Very heavy duty knife right here. That can be seen by just taking a look at the thickness of that spine right there. Let's bring out another couple of knives for a quick size comparison. Here is the Spyderco Para 3 and the Para 2. Here you're going to see it's a little bit bigger than the Para 2 is right there. I wish that I had some of my other knives. So many of them are out right now, sort of getting fixed. Here is the Gareth Bull Shamwari, also a 3.5-inch blade. You can kind of see the size difference right there. And here comes the Peter Rosenti Nirvana, also a 3.5-inch blade. So you can see kind of how these different knives handle their blade to handle ratio a little bit differently. This Warthog, certainly a very visually striking and aggressive looking knife. So let's go ahead and break this knife down anatomically. Up front is this very, very cool blade. I believe this is done in CPM 154. I could be wrong. It could be RWL. Forgive me. I will try to correct that down below. It is not as important as you might think. But what is important is the beautiful grinds that Brian has done here. Obviously you can see, maybe you can't if the camera won't focus, the big central fuller going on there. It is a harpoon drop point style blade with a double hollow grind, a hollow ground swedge. Just an extremely aggressive looking blade right here. Very, very cool. Take a look at how the edge flares out there towards the end. If I can get it to focus at all. The blade edge flares out a bit towards the end. Nice complicated grinds going on this. And then he did a mirror stonewash. You guys know that's one of my favorite finishes, and it is a very aggressive stonewash, so this polished blade can be used without any concern. and it does get used. Russell really carries and uses his knives. The whole goal of this knife was to make it a usable heavy-duty EDC, and that is exactly what we're seeing right here. I absolutely love the blade shape. I will say that the double hollow grind may not be the most practical knife blade grind that you could possibly do. However, these knives in these sort of custom formats are not always meant to be the most EDC, slicey, Spyderco paramilitary 2s. We're getting into more of an art knife or visual flair product, and so I absolutely love it. It is deeply hollow ground for the primary bevel right here, and it does cut just fine. Edge came extremely, extremely sharp. Very, very nice blade on this one. Super cool looking, very characteristic. I'm sure that Brian would be open to all different types of grinds and ideas. This being a prototype is just something to sort of show the model off. So this may be one of the options. I'm sure he'd be open to discussing different variabilities or variations with you. Moving back to the pivot, this thing runs on ceramic bearings with a ceramic detent. You can see the very, very tight lines that Brian keeps on his model. See how close that blade sits to the handle. Really, really like it when a model is that tight. Taking a look at the pivot hardware itself, this has a unique story. Because this was a prototype, Brian used some fairly simple Steve Kelly hardware, and Russell, who really likes the finer things in life, actually petitioned Ian at CMF Metalworks, Ian Pekarski, to make him a custom pivot for this. So this is a very unique piece because this features a custom-made pivot with zirconium on this side, with, I believe this is black Damascus bolster. This is hyperdrive black Damascus on the clip and on the collars right here. So just go ahead and take a look at it on the clip. Very cool. Alpha Knife Supply stuff right there. So very nice visual look on the pivot right here. I hope that Brian can learn how to make these kinds of pivots. I really, really like to see this. This is just a nice touch. Ian does some of the finest pivots in the industry, so it's kind of cool to see a collaborative effort on this one right here. Moving back to the handle, you have these big slabs of titanium. This is finished in sort of that bark style finish that some people call it. I've seen it called the Groot finish when it's a little bit more aggressive. Basically, it is a very aggressive scratch pattern with maybe a stonewash or a media blast or something like that, so that you get this almost wood grain pattern to the titanium. It provides a tactile sensation, but it's not overly aggressive on this knife, so it's going to slide in easily to the pocket. You can see that the grains all follow the same lines, so that it slides in and out of the pocket, and it provides traction, but it's not overly grippy in the wrong dimensions right there. There's no significant internal milling, but you can see these giant speed holes created here, and they match up somewhat with some holes on the back. This was a pattern that was decided upon by Brian and Russell. Brian has the ability to work this up in his CAD and then create it later on, and he makes all these knives by hand using simple tools, but he does draw them up in CAD first, and so he's able to sort of pre-plan everything. Very nicely done. The back spacer is floating in nature and also made of black Damascus, sort of a quarter length or 1/3 length back spacer. Nice touch right there. This is a very nice knife. It's a little on the overbuilt side, but I think that a lot of people are still into that, and it really is a very nice knife. If you're into the high-end knives, take a look at Brian Brown and what he's creating. He is a relatively new maker and very humble and very hungry and willing to get out there and make some really awesome knives. One of his models is called the Jaeger. That's the model that had the fuller. I was addicted to it at the Blade Show. If I had had the money, I would have bought it right there. He's got a number of other models, including this Warthog that y'all should check out. Definitely give him some time and support. He may be willing to make you a very relatively affordable custom knife. It's important for me to, with this channel, not only find the knives from the greatest, most well-known makers, but also find some new makers that are ready, willing, and able to fulfill your custom knife dreams. And Brian Brown is certainly one of them. He could not be a nicer human being. He's a wonderful guy, and so that makes it all the more special. And I know that Russell feels that way about this knife. It makes it all that more special that we've now built a relationship with this guy, and he's super nice. So thank you guys for watching. Go ahead and check out more of Brian Brown's work online. Let me know what you think of the Warthog down below in the comments. Follow me at Dr. Frunkey on Instagram. Follow my friend Russell at That's Not a Knife. And we'll check you out on the next video. Take care, guys.